Alright, everybody, welcome back, and welcome to what is the fastest plane in War Thunder. Definitely on the deck, and I believe at altitude as well. By the way, they just want to plug for a second. There's going to be one more day left on the Gaijin sales whenever this video goes live, and if you're looking to go ahead and pick up a pack during that time, if you want to get yourself my decal and help me out a little bit too, then the link is in the description down below. Back to the F-111F, I was surprised with how, competent it was in ARB compared to, especially the preceding F-111A. The F-111A always had high speed bleed, and then Gaijin cranked it up to the maximum with a nerf, a few months after it came out, and it became absolutely abysmal to play. The F-111F basically fixes all of the major issues with the F-111A, at least for ARB terms. So the biggest thing, if you ask me, is the fact that you go from your 6 AIM-9Bs to 6 AIM-9Ls. The 9L at 11.7 is an excellent missile. 30 Gs, long range, of course all aspect, and it also has some decent rear aspect flare resistance. This, of course, is not the lowest plane with them. You get them on the, for example, AMX and A10 at 10.3, 10.7. But this is the second lowest, supersonic platform to have them. The Tornado has them at 11.3, but it only gets 2 of them. And this, of course, gets 6. This is how you're going to get, I would say, the majority of your kills, considering the flat model. We'll get onto that here in a little bit. And they're great for picking off people that are, say, for example, dogfighting, not paying attention. You can fire them at close range rear aspect, and a lot of the time they'll ignore flares. If the target you're firing at has large caliber flares, I would not recommend risking this, because large caliber flares tend to typically just immediately one flare the 9L basically every single time. Stuff that has normal flares, and especially, F-14s or other very hot planes rear aspect, are going to have an extremely difficult time flaring it, though it is still possible. The other way you're going to be getting a lot of your kills, of course, is that 20mm in the belly, and please, please, please actually bring this, because you do have to equip it in the custom loadout. This is one of, if not the best guns in the game for air-to-air, and definitely at this BR is an excellent, excellent air-to-air weapon. And a big thing is the fact that you actually get the most cannon rounds of anything with the 20mm. You get 2,000 rounds of Vulcan, so you can basically spray about as much as you want to. That is a solid 20 seconds of trigger time. For comparison, that's more than double what you get on the F-15C. You're also going to want to spray a little bit because the gun is positioned low on the aircraft, making aiming a little bit difficult sometimes. It goes a bit below where you want to. And speaking of aiming, that's where we get to the flight performance. It's a bit subpar. Now, I am speaking about this in an air-to-air role before anyone starts going at me in the comments about how it's an attacker and that it's not supposed to be going after fighters, yada, yada, yada. Well, it does one thing extremely well, and that is go fast. The F-111F is extremely fast. You will easily be going Mach 1.3 on the deck in this, right? When you have to start engaging planes, that's where the problem comes in. The rudder can give you a bit of a hard time. You may have noticed me having issues getting the nose on target in some of the more, kind of scissor-like shots and stuff like that. But the bigger thing is just the fact that you bleed an insane amount of speed. You may have noticed me putting the wings forward into semi-auto even at higher speeds, and that is to try and retain some of that energy. There is one thing you need to be careful of, and that is the fact that, well, when you put it into semi-auto, unlike most other planes in the F-111F, the wings will not stay far enough back to avoid you ripping. You have to stay in auto if you want to completely avoid ripping your wings. Now, if you start turning, at all, you will bleed so much speed, from my experience, that putting the wings forward is no problem at all. Because as you can see, you lose hundreds of kilometers an hour per second with the wings back. You basically want to play it just like, the Tornado, for example, where you keep it at higher speeds, just try and run into a fight, missile or, shoot somebody, and then immediately run back out again. And unlike the Tornado, this thing is actually fast enough that it can typically get away with it. Here is the F-111A versus F thrust to weight, and thrust, as you can see, both the thrust and the thrust to weight is substantially higher than the A's. You can get to those high speeds fairly easily and keep it there so long as you aren't turning too tight. Now, if you're forced to start dogfighting, it can do it for the first few turns, so try and win during that time. Once it gets out of that, though, is when you start to see the problem. Even putting the wings forward, right, you're still going to bleed a lot of speed, and you're going to be down to that, 400 or 500 kilometer an hour range incredibly quickly, and then it really starts to feel like a bus. Now, you can throw the combat flaps out, and your combat flaps substantially boost your low-speed turning performance. Only problem with that is that, of course, it does increase your drag by a bit, but I mean, you have to do it or else you're going to die. It does not turn without this combat flaps at low speed. As long as you do that, and as long as you're at a lower fuel state, you could probably outrate stuff like, you know, the Phantoms, for example, but I would fully expect a MiG-23 to still easily outrate you. And yeah, that's where the next problem lies. The F-111's engines are extremely, extremely fuel hungry. Like, if you're going to be bringing it out, I would probably recommend bringing about an hour of fuel, and even then, there's a very good chance you're going to run out in, like, the first 10 minutes of the game. I'd probably recommend just going to 105% throttle on your way in, because, by the way, you will still be redlining, even on half of your afterburner. And it'll save you some fuel. Now, that, of course, is for ARB, and as we've already discussed, this thing is actually a ground attacker. That's the big role of the F-111. And especially the F-111F, what it got was a lot of precision-guided munitions in real life, right? And you can still very much see that in War Thunder. That is what I was really excited for whenever this plane first got added. You know, it wasn't, of course, the better engines, because realistically, I would still probably rather take other, you know, dedicated fighters in the tech tree. They're a lot less cumbersome. But when it comes to air-to-ground, at 11.7, this thing is very competent. At the time, it was the same BR as all the American top tiers at 11.7, so it was really nice because it meant you didn't have to up-tier yourself to bring an F-16C if you wanted D Mavs. Now top tier is 12.0, so it's actually a little bit below top tier, and you can bring, you know, your ADAS and your HSTVL and your, you know, original M1A2 if you'd like. Now, you see in the background, my Mavs have been shot out of the air by that Pantsir, so I, you know, decided to go ahead and drop the GBU-15, which is a really cool TV-guided 2,000-pound bomb. Now, he actually can shoot down that GBU-15 now if he sees it. There was a change recently where guided bombs are now able to be shot out of the air, but that's actually why I chose the GBU-15, because you don't actually get a little bit of a smoke trail, and from my experience at least, people are less likely to notice these GBUs than the Mavs on their radar. Now, when it comes to actually killing tanks or just standoff stuff in general, the Mavs are definitely better. I would highly recommend running these 6D Mavs. You can carry the Mav Gs if you wish to do so, but the only problem with that is you only get 2 of them. They're too heavy for the triple rack. Unfortunately, this means that you have the original Maverick warhead, and as you can see, I'm getting trolled by that, and only 2 of them are actually going to kill. This was just a particularly bad case of the Mavs not really doing damage, and here's another one coming up, by the way, but I still get more kills than I would have been able to, period, running the AGM-65Gs, so I would recommend running these. You probably noticed that this does, of course, actually get a thermal targeting pod as well, which is really useful for, you know, both the Mavs and the GBU-15. Unfortunately, though, this takes up the slot of the gun, so I am completely unable to kill any air targets unless I get lucky and hit them with a Maverick. But still, this leaves you with a thermal targeting pod and 6 self-guiding weapons, 2 of which are 2,000-pound bombs, which is a really, really, really great kit. You can, of course, also bring the laser paveways, and I know some people, you know, prefer to do that. Personally, I would rather have that fire and forget capability these days. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I would greatly appreciate it if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And by the way, I just passed 20,000 subscribers yesterday, so thank you very much. And I hope you all have a great day. I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.